Hello and welcome to Los Partidos of the Week. This is an episode of El Partido where I, Nick Bell, tell you which 6 games you should probably watch this weekend if you are a fan of Spanish football. It is the international break here, there and everywhere. The Nations League is well underway and a series of friendlies are happening across Europe and the world, which means La Liga is also absent given the amount of internationals that they do have within their squads. But that doesn't mean that Segunda and Primera RFEF are absent as well. Unlike in England, for example, the Championship, which also stops the international break, Segunda carries on and just a smattering of international football players depart, yet the teams have just got to rotate and exist in that little world, really. So, it's time for Segunda and Primera RFEF to have their time in the sun, so to speak, whilst the big teams all get ready to start up again next weekend. Just before we get into the 6 games and the first game I think you should watch this weekend, I would implore you, just as a bit of a sad an aficionado type thing, is if you really fancy delving down El Pozo, down the well, go and head down to the Segunda Federación. The game between Pontevedra and Numancia in the middle of this week looked absolutely crazy, covered in controversy. There was, accusations of bias. There was a huge amount of, shouting from the benches. There was people who were saying that the visiting side, Numancia, were mistreated and such like that. That it just sounds really, really crazy. And the goal that was given was clearly offside as well. And, that was the one that really helped keep, Pontevedra's promotion on track. But certainly, Numancia were also very much in that picture and will feel very harshly done by. I think this is going to be another one of those times where a club goes and complains to the Referees Association. I imagine that inbox is pretty damn full at the minute, the amount of accusations and complaints which are flying around. But just as a sidebar, go and check out that game. It was quite interesting to follow online the other day, and the highlights don't let you down either. But that'd be maybe a partido of the week that has already happened that's worth watching potentially. But no, not to delay. This is obviously a very short podcast and we want to get it nice and punchy. So the first game of this weekend that I want to point you in the direction of, it kicks off at 4:15 on Saturday afternoon. It is down in the province of Alicante. It is an Alicante province derby. It is between Elche and Eldense. Now, these two sides down in the southeast of Spain, they're only separated by about half an hour. I think it's about half an hour in the car between the town of Elda and the city of Elche. But they couldn't be further away in terms of league positions. One very much clinging on in the relegation scrap at the moment, and the other with strong intentions of being in one of the top 2 positions in this league to get promoted back to La Liga this season. And obviously I'm talking about Elche, who are currently 4th in the league. They are 2 points off Levante at the top at the moment in, pretty decent nick, in pretty decent form, whereas Eldense occupy that final relegation spot, and they are just 1 point from safety behind Real Zaragoza, who brought in Gabby as their manager this week as well. So, an interesting move there to see whether Real Zaragoza get that new manager bounce, which I'm sure they're absolutely searching for. But, on paper, you would possibly say this is a bit of a foregone conclusion. But in derbies, as we know, form goes out the window, and do not bet against Eldense, because despite their position at the moment, they are in fact one of the form teams in the league. They've got 3 wins in their last 5, and that included a 4-2 demolition of Real Zaragoza, who they've managed to claw back into the relegation battle as well. And, at one point when they were looking dead and buried alongside the likes of Cartagena, Tenerife, Racing Club de Ferrol, they're back in it, and you wouldn't bet against them potentially getting out of it at the moment. The way that we look at it. However, from the other flip side, Elche will be up for this though, because they will see it as a chance to play against a team which is down in the relegation zone and a chance to get their promotion plans truly back on track, because they've only won 2 out of the last 5. So not the greatest form. They had quite a respectable draw against Real Oviedo, I think it was last weekend. I'd have to double check that. But, Eldense are going into this game unbeaten the last 3 games. So you never know. And it's going to be quite interesting because as well, as much, again, you would think that Elche being the former La Liga side and Eldense being maybe the up and coming, being promoted from Primera RFEF a couple of seasons ago, you'd think there'd be a bit of an imbalance on this. But in the last 3 games, Eldense have come out on top. Eldense are unbeaten in those last 3 games they've played against Elche. And that included an impressive 2-1 win at the Martinez Valero last season. So they've got form. They can prove that they can go there and get a win, and they could possibly do it again. So, like I say, this on paper looks like it could be a slam dunk for the home side, but it could easily turn out to be a bit of an acca buster as well. However, Sarabia will have his team playing, really, really nice football as per usual. He's got them ticking over quite nicely now. It's worth keeping an eye out for Hossan. He got the equaliser against Real Oviedo in the last time out. He's been a really key player for Elche so far this season. Me personally, I'm always going to keep an eye out for Alex Febas, former Malaga player, former Mallorca man. And when he was at Malaga, he was an absolute joy to watch. And he's really someone who can make things happen from midfield. He can really break out and break through. And he's, a pretty decent pick for Sarabia to choose from. In the other camp, Jose Altra has seemingly found another gear for his Eldense side. Like I say, a few weeks ago, they were looking dead and buried amongst the rest, and the relegation battle was pretty much over. But he's managed to get them 4 wins in 8 games, and out of those 8 games, he's only lost twice. He seemingly found a really rich vein of form with Victor Garcia, and he's just hitting that form at the right time. But in terms of people you can bring off the bench as well at the moment, Sekou Gassama, he's seemingly having a pretty positive impact since coming back to Spain. But to have a former Roma and Napoli man, Amadou Diawara, he came off the bench in the last game out for Eldense against Mirandes, in a draw against Mirandes as well, which is no mean feat this season. To call on that caliber of player in a relegation battle is really interesting. I think he was linked with a Premier League move not too long ago for a few million. I think he moved to Italy for a few million as well. So, very high quality player to bring into this battle. So for me, if you've got something to be watching at 4:00 on Saturday afternoon, Elche versus Eldense in the Alicante Province Derby is definitely one you need to be looking towards doing. However, at the same time, kicking off at 4:00 on Saturday afternoon is the second game I'm going to pick. So if Segunda isn't your tipple of choice, maybe Primera RFEF is instead. And there is a great game on the cards over in the Spanish enclave in North Africa in Ceuta. It is Ceuta against Hercules, kicking off at 4:00 on Saturday. Weirdly, this is only the second ever time these two sides have met. And again, you'd think with 2 clubs with such rich histories as these two, that they probably would have played each other a few more times, but they haven't. The first meeting happened earlier this season in Alicante again. Hercules won that game 2-0 at the Jose Rico Perez, but much has changed in fortune since then. Ceuta got off to a bit of a ropey start this season, but have seemingly, got on the hype train towards promotion and did go top of Grupo Dos very briefly. However, as far as they're concerned, 2 back-to-back draws with Antequera and Atlético Saliqueño means they've slipped back into third. The title race in Grupo Dos is getting really, really tight there. I think it's something like 4 points separate Ibiza at top and Real Murcia in fourth. And then I'm pretty sure whoever's in fifth isn't too far behind them either. And Ceuta are only 2 points behind Ibiza. So if they can get a win here and results go their way, they could be, finishing this weekend on top of the pile, so to speak. Hercules themselves, they're not down and out either. They're only just 2 points outside the playoffs with a plethora of other teams that are, very much in the picture for trying to pick up that fifth or fourth spot in terms of being in the running. The most optimistic Hercules fan would say that a 9-point swing is nothing in this league either, given that, a lot of the top five are in really inconsistent form at the moment, winning here, drawing a lot of games there, some strange losses along the way as well. So you never know if they can really, get a win here and galvanize themselves going into the final few months of the season, then we might be in for a bit of a surprise. But it'll be tough. Ceuta is always a tough place to go for any team. Any team visiting the Alfonso Marubi, comes up against a very, very supportive crowd, a very, very loud atmosphere. This is their club, this is their city, and it will be bouncing there for this game as the home team, will look to be dragging their club, kicking and streaming towards Segunda, they hope. It is Kone who's the main threat for Ceuta at the moment going forward. He's a really, really powerful winger, very much in the same vein that they had with Cedric the last couple of seasons before he moved on to Cartagena. I think he's in Portugal now. It didn't really quite work out for him in Cartagena, but by the by, it seems to be a characteristic that Jose Romeo is very fond of. So he's definitely a conduit to what everything is happening for Ceuta at the moment. They've also got a very Spanish named player called Andy. Just to maybe give it a bit more credence, it is Andy Escudero. He's a very talented football player for this level, and he reached the playoffs with Gimnastic de Tarragona last season. So he's a pretty decent operator at this level, and hopefully, he can prove to be the difference for Ceuta, or he certainly will look to be doing. As far as a Hercules lineup, that their main man at the moment seems to be Soldevilla. He's the number 10 who loves to score goals. He's a very energetic midfielder. He loves to take a run at his defenders as well. So again, similarly to Kone in a way, he's the man who makes things happen for Hercules, and they'll be galvanized by some recent form, a draw with Real Madrid Castilla in the last game out. Probably not what they wanted at home, but, it's a draw nonetheless. And today they'll be looking at that first ever game that he played against Ceuta, thinking, we won that one. We want to win the second one as well and cause maybe a bit of an upset on the African continent come Saturday afternoon. So that's Ceuta against Hercules, 4:00 on Saturday, and that'll be a great watch down in Primera RFEF. Moving on to the last Saturday game. This is a big one right at the top of the Segunda table. Game 3 of the weekend that I'm picking is Mirandés versus Racing Santander. As I've mentioned, 6:30 kickoff. This is very much a title challenge 6-pointer that nobody expected at the beginning of the season. I know when I was on GiriCast, we did a show where we talked about the predictions for the league, who's going to finish in the top 6, where are Malaga going to finish and who's going to finish at the bottom. And I think all of us collectively had Mirandés in the bottom 4. I think Racing Santander didn't really get a mention from me, to be perfectly honest with you, but certainly we were betting our mortgages that Mirandés would be in that bottom 4. Never mind, 2 points off top as they are at the moment. But it's a very, very strange one because they look like they wouldn't even be able to fill the bench at the start of the season. It's a very bizarre story, and one that if they do go on to reach La Liga for the first time, will be one of the most phenomenal football stories you'll ever listen to. And this will be on a form of El Partido's, nostalgic lookbacks for many years to come if it does happen, because it's ultimately very baffling. As far as Racing concerned, they hold the slender lead, I suppose, in in this by being just 1 point ahead of Mirandés in second, and they are subsequently 1 point behind Levante, who are top at the moment. This is a chance for Jose Alberto Lopez to once again return to Anduva, a place where he was quite successful as a manager. He managed them during that COVID season before leaving for Malaga just after that. He's now at 100 games for Racing Santander as well, and he's really transformed that club from, sort of like proverbial relegation scrappers. He went in there as a bit of a firefighter and managed to keep them up at the last moment. Solidified last season, and this season he's just taken them to that next level. So, take nothing away from what he's doing there. But same can be said for Alessio Lischi as well. The Italian, what he's doing at Anduva, as I mentioned, is nothing short of miraculous as well. And given, sort of like the short tenure he had at Levante, they'll be happy to see him obviously succeeding at Mirandés, but hopefully not at the expense of Levante going back up to La Liga 2. But Racing will be wanting to get a little bit of a revenge. Earlier this season, it was a defeat at the hands of Mirandés at El Sardinaro. It was around that time where Racing had this massive, I think it was about 10-point lead at the top of it, where teams like Mirandés started just to chip away at it, and basically, ultimately they blew it. And now they're very much in the title race with, 4 or 5 other clubs, whereas they could have been, crowned champions by the end of March if they'd carried on the form they were showing. So obviously this is a bit of an opportunity for Racing to go top first and foremost, given, depending on the Levante result, which we'll talk about later, but also get a bit of revenge because, it's never nice to lose at home. So it's good to give that side that hurt you a bit of a bloody nose as well. Just to look out for some players in this game. 2 of the league's form players you've got to look out for here. For Racing, you've got Andres Martin, who really does have a claim of being the best player in Spain at the moment outside of La Liga. He's up to 25 goal involvements. And I hate that term as much as anybody else, but it is pertinent to say that he's involved. He's our man of the match performer. He's a very strong player for Racing at the moment. 11 of those 25 goals involvements were goals as well, which is always worth mentioning. And he's looking like a top player, and the way he seemingly is a conduit and has this combination play with Arana up top, who also loves to score a goal, as well as Inigo Vicente. It's brilliant to watch, and Jose Alberto Lopez needs to take a lot of credit for getting this kind of football out of these players and transforming them into the world beaters that they're looking like at the moment. Likewise, from a Mirandés perspective, it's incredible to see Panicelli, the way he's playing at the moment. He's currently a 1-2 striker for this division, 15 goals in 29 games. Really bizarre to think that Alaves let this boy go out on loan. I know he wasn't ripping up trees, but surely they must have identified that the Argentine was a real handful and the promise that he shows. But as we've mentioned, Alaves' loss is very much Mirandés' gain at this moment. He's a striker who is absolutely on fire. And the fact he's got that midfield partnership behind him from here. So the first one I'll have no problem saying here, it is Reina. He's a very classy, proactive midfielder, very, very combative, but very, very talented with a bit of guile in there. Whereas this is a Basque name, so I can barely speak Spanish, never mind Basque, but Goro Extega is what I'm going to go with. Again, another brilliant linchpin in there for Mirandés, and is another player who's certainly worth keeping an eye on. At 6:30 on Saturday evening, Mirandés versus Racing Santander. That is game 3 that I'm recommending you watch this weekend. Clicking over to Sunday, this is the first game on Sunday afternoon. It is a 12 o'clock kickoff in the Primera RFEF. It is top versus bottom, and it is a classic top versus bottom, but with a twist. It's Ibiza versus Intercity. 2 very small clubs in the grand scheme of things, but Ibiza obviously, have been in Segunda as of late. They've got, very good backing from the owners, and they're building something there, which is quite nice. But this game is going to be hopefully littered with names that you love to hear playing at this level. It's very much one of those where you're looking at it and going, oh yeah, do you remember him from there? Or do you remember him when he played for them? And it's absolutely brilliant. I've mentioned tantamount of times how great it is to see Bebe tearing it up for Ibiza. I think 4 goals so far for them this season, including that really brilliant one against Real Murcia a couple of weeks ago, where he just strode onto the end of this wonderful Alex Gaillard through ball, and he's looking really, really confident at the moment. But could we see for the first time this season that intercity trident of stars is what I'm going to call it? Will they be able to start all the same game? Because they have got, former Champions League man Anthony Modeste. They've got AFCON top goal scorer Emiliano Insue, and former Brighton and PSV man Jurgen Locadia on the books. But it's been a while since we've seen Jurgen. He scored a hat-trick a few weeks ago and then seemingly just disappeared off the face of the earth, whereas Anthony Modeste has been reduced to cameos to star. So Nsui is very much the star man still at Intercity. Ibiza will definitely want to get this one booked to a win, though. They want to get the Camises absolutely rocking for this one, because they've got a chance to get back on that winning run. Like I say, they had a bit of a blip last weekend. A draw away at Algeciras is not the most unusual thing. It is a tough place to go to from time to time, but they'll be looking at that saying, well, we're on a 6-game winning streak, we want to do that again. We want to lock up top spot now and get ourselves moving and get ourselves basically promoted by the end of April potentially, especially if results go their way. And as I've already mentioned, those other ones in the pack are starting to falter ever so slightly. Intercity, despite being rock bottom, despite being 5 points off Atletico Sanluqueño, who are second bottom, they're only 7 points clear, or 7 points off safety, I should say. And as I mentioned, it's not strange for a team to hit a bit of rich vein of form and just completely turn around their season in Primera RF. And the fact that you've got so many sides down there, which is just totting up anywhere between, bottom up about the 5 relegation places and about 4 teams above it as well, who are all around the 31, 32 mark, 33, 34. It's not impossible for them to look at that and thinking, right, if we get on a winning run, we could get ourselves out of trouble pretty quickly here if we need to. And you'd like to think that's what they need to do, because the stadium plans aren't a secret, but they have announced into City that they want to put the business case forward for this new multi-purpose venue in Alicante, a 20,000-seater stadium it's going to be, which is obviously going to be the home of Intercity, but it'll also be open for things like concerts and stuff like that. And you'd like to think that, you kind of need to be playing at the highest level as you can be to really have any chance of filling a 20,000-seater stadium. But the further you go down El Pozo, the harder it certainly gets to get out there. And Intercity definitely will be looking at that and thinking, if we go down, who knows when we might come back up again? Because it's very much a lottery as soon as you get into the Segunda Federación. So, yeah, interesting one to watch for me, that one. Like I say, it's got a bit of everything. It's got some household names. It's got some lovely Balearic sunshine, but also the opportunity for possibly one of the biggest upsets of the weekend for me, if Intercity can pick up a win there and maybe, just maybe, get their safety back in Primera into their hands potentially. But yes, that is Ibiza versus Intercity, 12 o'clock on Sunday. If you're UK based, even better, 11 o'clock on Sunday morning as well. And who'd want to watch James Martin's Kitchen, whatever it's bloody called, when you've got Ibiza versus Intercity on the television? Why not? Why not? Now going into game 5 of the weekend, we are slowly dragging ourselves towards the end of the weekend here. It is another derby, but this time in the Valencian community. It is top of the league Levante versus Castellón, 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. Julian Calero will be hoping that his side can beat their near neighbours. basically to ensure they keep top spot for themselves. I think that's going to be the main mission of anybody who finishes, top at this weekend of Segunda is right. How do we keep everybody else at arm's length? Levante are the form side in the league at the moment with 4 wins out of their last 5. That's included some, pretty impressive scalps against Huesca, who, up until recently were also in the title picture, but also against Mirandés as well, as I've already said in this program. Mirandés are a very strong challenger this year, a very form side, and the fact they managed to turn them over quite easily, actually, it was not a surprise, but it certainly shows intent from Calero's side. Castellón, on the other hand, they've pretty much turned a corner now under Johan Platt. Obviously, they potted Dick Schroeder a few weeks ago now, and his assistant has picked up the reins and, sort of got them back on an even keel. Some good form, some decent draws in there as well, scattered with a couple of wins. But they'll be under no illusions that they are still in danger. They are looking over their shoulder at resurgent Eldense. The fact that, Gabi has gone in at Real Zaragoza, will he turn things around? And despite the fact they're currently sat in 15th, the gap between them and Eldense is only around, I think it's 5 points, 6 points at a push. So, they'll be thinking, maybe we just need to get something here. A point will do just to keep people at arm's length and at bay. Levante will be without, and again, don't speak Georgian. This is a very long name. Do forgive me, but Georgi Kochorashvili is missing this game through suspension, technically. However, fortunately for Calero, he is away with the Georgian national team at the moment. So nothing lost, nothing gained. I'm not too sure what the rules are on that. If he's serving a suspension and missing one of the matches in Segunda, but can still be away with his national side, like I say, it's surely a bonus anyway, because he wasn't going to be there either way. So absolutely perfect timing for them to hit the international break. A couple of the ones to watch for Levante for me are your usual suspects. You've got your Alvarez, you've got your Brugge up front, but it's the wing backs for me which are particularly good. And I don't know if this is because Julian Calero, I can't remember if he was a fullback or not, to be perfectly honest, but I know his son was. So it must be something in the genes where he seemingly is transforming these players. And, they sold a lad to Aston Villa in January who had not really been in the Levante team that long, but, he's turned him into a wonderful right back. And he's seemingly getting a similar note out of Dea and Diego Pampin at the moment. The latter scoring a goal last weekend and putting in a man of the match performance. So, eyes are naturally drawn to the attacking positions, but just keep your eye out for these wingbacks because they are something to be admired. For Castellón, Raul Sanchez is missing through suspension. He's going to be a bit of a big loss for this one because he is one of the team's top goal scorers this season and is a real mover for them at the moment, which is again going to be a bit of a loss. But hopefully there'll be players to pick up that influence that they'll be losing from him. Castellón will be hoping for another big performance from Joshua Vertraud, who Alvarez is a very tricky little right winger, so he's probably going to have a pretty decent or a pretty busy afternoon at left back anyway. But if he can pop up with another goal like he did last weekend, then Johan Platt will be very, very thankful for his compatriot if they come away from Levante with anything this weekend. But I don't want to put my cap on anything, but dare to say the form that Levante are in, the ambitions of where they want to be back in La Liga, it's hard to see maybe anything other than a home win here between Levante and Castellón at 2:00 on Sunday afternoon. And now into the final game, game 6 of this weekend, as we approach half an hour on this quick, seemingly wanted to be 10-minute podcast. Game 6 I've chosen is between Ponferradina and Lugo. That is a 5:30 kickoff on Sunday. I'll need to start with an apology on this one, to be fair, because last week I said that Ponferradina were in a Galician derby against Arentero. Unbeknownst to me, and I've now consulted my newly purchased map of Spain and its region, it tells me that Ponferrada isn't in Galicia. It's actually in Castile y Leon. So, like I say, was not a derby. So I apologise to anyone who I may have offended with that one. But it's no trouble as far as I'm concerned if you're from Ponferrada, because you seemingly are an hour from a lot of different teams, so they're all derbies for you, aren't they? Especially in the bit of Spain, it's a bit like being in the northwest of England. You could be in Preston, and you could have derbies against Morecambe, Burnley, Wigan, Bolton, Blackpool. There's plenty of people around to hate, basically. And I'm not saying that Ponferradina hate everybody, but they're close enough. And this one isn't strictly a derby between Ponferradina and Lugo, but there does always seem to be a little bit of needle between these two cities. I'm not too sure why. I don't know if it's like I don't know, an ancient rivalry. Obviously, Lugo being the Roman base, and Ponferrada being maybe a bit more traditionally Spanish. I've got no idea. I'm waffling. Let's move on. Ponfe will be hoping to get another win under the belts. That they've still got aspirations to catch Cultural Leonesa, who currently sit in top spot in that automatic promotion spot for Segunda. But Lugo are also hitting a bit of a rich vein of form of late, which is much needed considering where they are in the league at the moment. Down in that relegation zone as we speak is not a great spot for them. In midweek as well, they headed across to the Banca Baleros to take on Celta Fortuna, a really good opportunity for Celta to play, at the big stadium as well, which I think is quite nice. And, seemingly, was quite a good occasion because Lugo came away from that game with a much needed 3 points, which was followed. That followed the back of a really impressive home win against Unionistas de Salamanca as well. So, back-to-back wins from Lugo is really turning their season around potentially and hopefully dragging them towards safety. This fixture itself is always usually fairly even too. In the last 5 games, we've had 3 draws and 2 Ponfe wins, but in those they've only been won by a solitary goal. So it's if you're thinking of you're going to get a load of goals in this one, this probably shouldn't have been a pick for the weekend watching, but it's just got a little bit extra about it for me. These are 2 clubs which have seemingly played each other a lot of times, 67 to be in fact, with Ponfe getting 23 of those wins. There's been 20 draws, but Lugo just edged the bragging rights for this one with 24 wins. So it'll be interesting to see whether Ponfe can equalise this one this weekend, playing at home. In terms of the squads, hopefully Andres Prieto is back with his goggles and trunks. That's a little inside joke for me. I was absolutely lost my head last weekend when I saw that he was playing in a swimming cap, but apparently he needed some stitches, and the swimming cap was the clothing of choice to guarantee that his stitches wouldn't come undone. So hopefully he's okay to play in this one. I think he will be. In terms of other Ponfe players to look out for, you've got your 2 wingers, Yedai, who scored an absolute peach of a free kick a couple of weekends ago. He's really, really a handful and very proactive, alongside Alex Muller as well. He is in quite hot form at the moment too, and the way they help Ponfe transition from defence to attack very, very quickly is a massive advantage for them, and something that Lugo have definitely got to be aware of in this game. For Lugo, it's John Cabo. He scored this midweek against Celta Fortuna. He's not the most prolific striker or winger or goal scorer in the world, but it was nice to see him break his duck midweek of only scoring. He scored against a team that wasn't his old employer. He seemingly this season for Lugo was only good at scoring in the league against Sestao River, who was the team he played for last season. So maybe he can pick up there and keep running again with that one. But that is my 6th game of the week. Ponferradina versus Lugo in the Primera RFEF Grupo Uno, and let's see what happens there. But once again, if there's any other suggestions of games you think we should be watching, do get in touch at El Partido _ES at Twitter or elpartido.es on Instagram. It is always nice to hear from everybody to let us know what games you're watching. I'll be watching Malaga play at home tomorrow afternoon against Racing Ferrol. Again, that's a game I could have put in here in terms of a massive relegation 6-pointer for the home side, but I thought I'd keep that one to myself. So yeah, enjoy your football weekends. Enjoy your La Liga free weekend as well. And I would really advocate, if you haven't watched any Primera REF so far this season, just give it a go. You can tune into FEF TV and watch all the games live as they happen. It is subscription based, but it's worth. I think it's translates to about £9.20, £9 a month. So really, really not bad. Good value for money. Or as a benefit, what Primera REF do is they stick out all the highlights pretty much immediately after the game. And it's not, a 60-second roundup. They are quite comprehensive highlights, usually around 5 or 6 minutes long. So definitely worth a watch. And who knows, you might find yourself a Primera REF club this weekend that you might quite like to fancy following moving forward. But from me, Nick Bell, thank you so much once again. We'll see you later on. Hope you enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Hasta luego.